looking at how to organize your students with Teams assignment during our Inspire session. I'll be honest, this is my first virtual conference presentation. I've done many conference presentations, but never a virtual one. So be easy on me, but definitely send the feedback through the chat box. Let me know if I can slow down or speed up, or reactions if we need more time on something. This agenda can definitely be flexible to meet your needs today. All right, so a little bit about me. I am what's called a K-3 collaborative teacher in Tacoma, Washington for Tacoma Public Schools. And what that means is I go into at least 4 classrooms per day where I am a co-teacher in the room. And this has sure been an exciting role for me because I've learned how do I really change practice, and then how do I change my own practice through working collaboratively with another teacher. Some of the things I do in my free time, I enjoy backpacking or biking, anything in the mountains. Right now I'm attending a yoga teacher training 200-hour certification, and it's all on online. So that's been a new experience as a learner, doing all of my remote sessions, not as a teacher, but now as a participant. And I am also a popcorn enthusiast. Any type of popcorn, I love that. If you want to reach out to me, if you have questions, want to collaborate, or if there's anything that I can answer for you, you can find me at Twitter at Stanek Christy. My email address is right here, christy.stanek@usmie.com, or on LinkedIn, Christy Wolford. As you can see, I've got a couple last names there. Christy Stanek Wolford is my official name, but I go by either. All right, so now let's hear from you really quickly, and let's get introduced. I'd like to know, what city or country are you joining from today? I did see we have some really exciting places. You can give your state or city or country, whatever you're comfortable with. What you'll do is go to the meeting menu bar right here and select chat, and you can add. Wow, people from all over, so exciting. Bahrain, Utah, local, Silverdale, near Seattle, Southern California, Gig Harbor. Wow, a fellow Tacoman, wonderful. Thank you. And I am actually currently in Issaquah, but I teach in the Tacoma School District. If you were not able to access the chat or having any challenges with that, please feel free again to come off mute right here, and you can let us know, and Beth will help you access that. Okay. So now we're going to get back to what we're going to learn during this time, or an overview of what we're going to do. The main goal is really focusing in on assignments, but before we dive in, for those of you who are new to Teams, I'm going to do a brief walkthrough or an overview of Teams to help you kind of get a gist of where these assignments might lie and how you might use them. We'll work on customizing assignments for efficiency for you, the teacher, as well as your students, and then look at grading and the feedback loop. So before we really dive into Teams, I'd like you to go ahead and put in the chat box, what is your experience with Teams? So a 5 being, I'm an all-star, a 0 or 1, I'm brand new. You could even use some emojis or a GIF to explain where you're at there. Make it a little fun. Ooh, we've got lots of experts, a few new people, wonderful. So those of you who are brand new, again, please feel free to stop me if you have questions, if I'm going too fast. Those of you who are 5s, 4s, 3s experienced with this, please, please, please come off of mute or type in the chat box suggestions or ideas on how to use these things. Collectively, we are better together, and I want your feedback too, and I want this session to be beneficial to all, and we have a chance to share ideas.
I have a problem. It says only team members can chat. Ask the team owner to make you a member.
Okay, so I think what happened there, and Beth, go ahead and chime in. Sometimes you can join as a guest, or you I think if you joined in private browser and signed in, you're probably still connecting from your district's tenant, which
okay.
if you don't want to go out and come back in, that's no problem. You can just come off mute to ask questions or share your feedback. Or if you want to go ahead and use an in-private browser to log in, that would fix that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I love the gifts coming in, and also, oh, and thank you so much. I see we have some guests helping each other out. That's wonderful too. We really appreciate that. All right, so you are all in a team, and that's where I'm going to be demoing. So I'll go into our team that you're all a part of for this conference. And then I also have a sample team that I've created for doing some demonstrations. Today, while I'm demoing, it's up to you if you want to sit back and just kind of watch what's going on, or if you want to try it out. I will definitely give you options to try out some of these steps on your own. Because most of you are signed in on this tenant, you'll need to probably use an in-private browser to sign into your tenant, or maybe some of you might be fortunate to have a personal computer and a work computer where you can have one signed in to this meeting and another signed in to your tenant that you use for work. It's up to you, but again, I will give you some opportunities for that interactivity. Also, at the end of our session, I'll be sure to give you a code for your participation today on this work that we're doing today. So stay tuned. If you do have to leave early, this is being recorded, so you can get that code at the end as well, or come back to this chat to get that code.
Hey, Christy, does it matter if they're outside of our organization, if I make them a presenter, does that give them the features they would need to interact?
You know, Beth, I'm not sure. Let's give it a try.
Christy,
Okay.
This is Emily.
Yes.
I was reading through I would not recommend making somebody a presenter because they can mute the people and they have more options. But if somebody can't get to the chat, it's because they were definitely not signed in with the correct tenant. And the attachment that I got from I2E that explained the step-by-step directions, there's a great picture in there that would help them understand how to switch from one place to the other to get in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Beth. Beth, would you mind forwarding that?
Sure.
Possibly, or put a link in the chat just in case.
You bet.
Thank you. All right, and one final thing that's a brand new feature, you may have noticed a hand in your menu bar. And if you want to raise your hand, that's also another option that is a brand new feature within the last week or so. So definitely feel free to give that a try as well. Okay, so today I'm going to be demoing from the Teams app. So as you can see in my taskbar here, I'm using the Teams app. You can also use the mobile version or the online version of a team by going online, logging into your Office 365 and using that as well. Either way, you know, they work great. The way you know if you're in the app or online is you would have the address bar at the top. Today I will be using the app. So first I'm going to go to Teams, and here we are. I know you've all been here. This is our conference team. This is a other type team, so this is not a class team. So that's why I won't stay in here all the time. I'll start here and then I'll move to my demo team. So over here on the left, this is what we call the me space. This is that basically it controls where you go. Anything over on this side, this menu is yours. So chat, these are chats that you're involved in, not your specific team or your student. These are assignments that you've assigned to various teams. or calls in your calendar. This is connected to your Outlook calendar. So if you click on that, you'll see all of your meetings as well as your Teams meetings. Your activity, this is a very important place to go. This is where you know if there's new activity in all of your teams. So a lot of teachers ask me as they get started with teams, like, well, I'm really afraid of missing something. How do I know if somebody's posted something? I always go right up here to the activity and start there. One other thing you'll notice when you are in a team is that it's bolded. Some of these these channels are bolded. And what that means is that there's new content there. Somebody has added something since the last time I've been in, so I need to go check on that. All right, so continuing on, just a couple housekeeping things as we go all the way up and across the top. This right here, this is where you can change your settings. So sometimes when I'm in a meeting, or an online meeting, the notifications that are coming in when the presenter asks for a question, like, hey, everyone, tell me your experience with Teams. Well, the notifications can get in the way of me responding to the chat. So if you click here, you can change to do not disturb. So clicking on your picture or where your picture would be, and then you can change. If you don't want to receive those messages in the bottom, just click, or those notifications, do not disturb. I would do that now, but make sure to come back so you get those notifications later. You can also change your setting there to be right back. Like if you're running to use the restroom or something and you want your teammates to know that you're not available that minute, but you will be shortly. All right, so coming back over here, I'm going to click on all teams. So these are teams that are just every team you're a part of. So if you're brand new to Teams, when you click on all teams, it's usually a little daunting because you might see all these teams that you had no idea you were a part of. So I'll teach you how to manage those in a bit, but it's just, these are teams that you've either been invited to or have created yourself. I'm now going to switch over to my sample class to show you kind of the nuts and bolts of a team. So I am now in my sample team, and these right here, these are all channels. So kind of think of these as like you would maybe like a notebook kind of. These are the parts to my notebook. Or this could be, if I'm an elementary teacher, this could be a binder for each class, my channels. You can make these you can make lots of channels or a few channels. All teams come with a general channel. That's kind of like your homeroom or your central hub. And then within our general channel, we'll come right up here, and these are our tabs across the top here. So in a general channel, they all have posts, and that's that discussion piece. Every other channel you create will also have posts. So as you think about how you organize your team or how you decide how you want to put out content to your students, be thinking what would go in general, kind of like that homeroom, one-stop shop. And some teachers stay with just a general channel at first and then build more later. Moving on, every channel has a files section. These files here are automatically collaborative or shared unless you put them in class materials. So as a teacher on this team, I have access to add class materials here in this file right here, and it automatically comes with this type of team. I can put materials that I don't want students editing. Everything else that I add here or upload here, so like a Word document, or if I accidentally put my syllabus here and didn't put it in class materials, it would be collaborative. Unfortunately, the other day in my son's class, his teacher did not know that and posted all of the assignment, or had links to the assignments and put them right here in files. And then when he went in to do the work was already done. He was quite delighted about that. Unfortunately, I don't think the teacher was. So again, files are collaborative. They're meant to be collaborative documents here. Moving on across, when you choose this type of team, you have a class notebook that's automatically included. And we have some great sessions on Thursday on using the class notebook to really build your team. So I would definitely check into that. We won't spend a lot of time on that today, but know that the class notebook is something that is added to every class team. And then today, where we'll spend the bulk of our time is on assignments and then some grades. All right, I want to pause there for a moment and have a quick chat in the discussion. What are some of the different types of teams that you've created? So if you're a secondary teacher, do you usually create, or how are you using the channel? So a secondary teacher, do you have one team for all of your biology classes, or do you use multiple teams and then have channels? So just kind of wondering, as an elementary teacher, are you using one team for all of your students, or are you using multiple teams for each subject? So secondary, intermediate, or if you run professional development, how are some ways you're using your teams? Just kind of to get everyone brainstorming, or those of you who are new, looking at how other people are using. So I'm seeing each class has their own team. Channels are assignments and projects. One team per class in middle school. And that's what I'm finding usually for elementary. One team is plenty. Sometimes your specialist, like your librarian, might have their own team, but I will show you in a moment how to add people to your team. So maybe even like if some of your students receive, or not if, when some of your students receive special ed services, you can add a co-teacher on here. Oh, wonderful. Julie Hembry, I believe that is, her teachers add her to their class team, so it's easier for those students. And then, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. That's one thing when you're just getting started, thinking about what is going to be the easiest for your students to manage. Sometimes teachers I've seen, even myself when I first started, I found that I was creating lots of different teams, and then it got really hairy for my students, especially as I started using assignments. So I wanted some of our experts in this session to share. All right, so I also saw there's somebody made a comment in the chat that reminded me, and thank you so much, and I'm sorry it's now past. I'm not exactly sure which one of you said it, but such an important thing. The nice thing is when you add a channel, you can add a channel and make it a private channel. So maybe just some of specific students that might be receiving differentiated assignments or different services, or sometimes you might be doing planning with another teacher and you don't want the students to see that yet. You can change your channel to private so that student or whomever you want to see that channel can see it, and then whomever you don't can't, so, or can't access it. So that's a really important point, that you can make some channels private and some open. Absolutely. All right. I just want to do a quick check-in. Are there any questions really quickly? Any questions before we move on? Oh, thank you, Matthew, for helping out. All right, so I'm going to continue on. Okay, I see one question. Can you make copies of the materials for each student? Yes, we will absolutely go over that in assignments. And that is one of my favorite features, that it's so quick and easy for students to access their own copy of a file. Julia, yeah, so the class material folders are read-only, absolutely. So files within class materials are read-only. So only teachers on this class can edit those, but students cannot in class materials. But if I uploaded a Word document here, that document is automatically collaborative for all of my students. So just as a teacher, if you don't want something edited, make sure you put it in class materials, but everything else here is meant to be collaborative. That is the purpose. So, and I see a question, what's the best way to organize in teams? Things tend to get lost or difficult to find. Absolutely. So my hope is that some of you in this call can also add to this on what strategies you found. My biggest advice is start really simple and help your students know where to find things. Sometimes as educators, we get really excited about a new tool and we just start adding lots of channels and resources. And then before we know it, our students can't find all that we wanted them to find. So I would start very small, start with a general channel, and then maybe depending on what your focus is or your grade level, you might have a general channel and a social channel at first as you're getting going with students and assignments. I recommend that social channel because right now, as you know, our students and all of us are really struggling to make those personal connections. So by giving students that option for a social channel, it gives them the opportunity to have some chats or discussions with classmates in an appropriate space in your team. So, and again, if any of you have suggestions, please feel free to chime in the chat box as well. The other way that I start, in particular with elementary, is have one class team and then have your channels broke out by the content area. So a math channel, an language arts or ELA channel, and go from there. Okay. So now I'm going to quickly show you how to create your first team for those of you who are new. And as you start to think about what you might use your team for. So I'm going to click back to all teams. You could also use this menu bar here, teams, and that will bring you to all of the teams that you're in. If you would like to create a channel, there's a box right here, join or create, sorry, I said channel, team. If you'd like to create a team, click join or create team right here. And this is where you have a couple options. You can create a team right here, or if you've been invited to a team and you have a join code, this is where you would enter it. So when you think about inviting your students, I'll show you that in a moment, this is where they would enter that join code. That's easy and an in-person with students, but depending on your students' tech savviness or experience with teams, that might not be the best route. We'll continue on and take a look at that in a moment. So when you select create a team, you have options here. A class team, this is where you will have that class notebook included. A PLC team, this is what I use with my colleagues as we're planning lessons or sharing resources. This is where we keep all of our materials for our PLCs here. I have those broken into grade bands that I'm a part of. Staff teams, this is where an administrator can create a team. Anybody can create a staff team, but an administrator might use a staff team because it gives every member their own section in that staff team OneNote notebook. So it gives you an opportunity to look at evaluations or things like that that can be done even within here in a secure space where only the staff member and the administrators see that. And an other team, that's what you're in today for our Inspire session. So it doesn't have the assignments and it doesn't have the OneNote built in. It's just kind of a real basic template for a team. When you click class team, you'll give your team a name. So again, if you're an elementary teacher, you might give it a, Mrs. Wolford's class team. Or if you're a secondary teacher, Mrs. Wolford's biology 201 class. It's up to you. You can give it a description. That is optional. I'm going to just call this a sample team. And then I'll click next. And this is where you can add your students. And the reason I really wanted you to see this, this is also where you can add other teachers. So like a librarian, Julie had mentioned, she is on all of her teachers that she supports as a librarian's team. So then Julie is also a teacher on this team, so they can both support students within this team. This is a great spot for special education teachers or any support specialists. We have our counselors on our teams so that they can provide that social emotional support as well. So just a great place to add teachers. I'm going to skip that. All right, so I'm going to give you a moment to create a team. Those of you who have already created a team, you're moving and grooving, or you're just watching for today, I have a video that Beth is going to place in our chat, and it's actually a channel in YouTube by Alice Keeler, and she has put together lots of videos for parents. So one key thing as you dive into teams with your students, don't leave the parents behind. And Alice Keeler has created some really good resources to help the parents of the students you're supporting get up to speed. So Beth is going to place that link in the chat log so you can choose, do I want to kind of look at some of these videos that are offered that I might want to share with my parents, or do I want to dive in and create my own team? While we're doing that, and I want to make sure I can answer questions, and I know I've got lots of people on here answering questions as well, we'll take about 5 minutes to do that. So I'm going to go back into our Inspire conference session, and I'm going to put on a 5-minute timer. So that you can check in when it is time to come back. Oh, and I do see one other point I want to address. Caution adding support personnel before reaching out to them. Absolutely. If somebody does not know what they're doing, by adding them as a teacher to your class, they could really mess it up by deleting things on accident or not knowing. So you can always invite them later after you've had a conversation, or if you know that they have an understanding of how teams work. So definitely thank you so much for adding that.
And Christy, one of the questions that was in here that I'm just curious how people are thinking about it, I think there's more than one way to do it, is from Nancy, is there a reason to put files or documents in the files on Teams rather than in the content library of a class notebook?
You know, to my experience is it varies on the teacher's decision to use the class OneNote. I know, especially as people just start using Teams, that sometimes if they don't have class notebook experience, that can be daunting. I love class OneNote, so I would probably put them there as well, Nancy. But depending, some teachers choose not to dive into the notebook at first. And that's an easy thing to put off until a later date. The other reason you put files in there would be if you wanted them to be a tab or something later, you want to add a collaborative document and you want it to be a tab. But Nancy, if you have anything to add, because I know you're a OneNote expert, please feel free, as well as a Teams expert, to chime in on your favorite tricks for that as well. Okay, we'll come on back, and I've seen some great discussion in the chat box. For those of you interested in adding a timer like this to one of your teams, if you're doing meetings with students, I'll be covering that in this afternoon session, 2 p.m. Pacific time, on tabs with teams. So that we'll be going over a little later this afternoon, and I hope you can join that session as well. All right, so a couple questions. Between OneNote, ClassNote, or OneNote notebooks and Teams, they all seem to overlap. What is the purpose and what are the differences between them? Such a great question, and they do overlap. When somebody is just getting started with something, if you've already started using Class OneNote with your students right now, you might hold off on Teams until maybe if you start a new session with them this summer or fall, if you've got a system that's working and you like, and maybe pick one thing to start exploring about Teams. I feel like Teams is kind of that big shell of all of the opportunities, and then OneNote, the class notebook, can be the core. So you will find, if you become a really heavy class notebook user, that you kind of have a need for a little bit more, and that might be class meetings. You might want one-stop shop for discussions. You can do all of that with Teams, and it's a little bit trickier, less seamless, easy for your students to use. So if somebody is brand new with all of it, I always recommend starting with Teams and adding the notebook later. It's not something you need to dive into now. If you're already using Class Notebook, you might start dabbling in Teams to get to know what else it can do, like you're here today, and then seeing, okay, I think it's worth switching over and combining the two because I have this other need. Again, all of these tools have so many capabilities that are amazing, and I know I get very excited about them, but when you're brand new, pick one thing you want to try and go with that. And get to know that, see how it helps your students, and then as you feel a need for more, or gosh, I'm missing communications from my students, or I really wish we had this other thing we could do, that's when you add in that next tool. So kind of let yourself and your students drive where your need is. But again, if you're starting fresh, I start with Teams and then add in the Class Notebook later. And again, we've got a great session on Thursday on Class Notebook, so you can check that out as well. Okay, so we're going to now dive into the meat, the fun part of the session, which is assignments. So you have options for adding an assignment right over here in your Me space. Click on assignments. And this is where your students do this as well. So when you train your students to come on in, they'll click on assignments and they pick the class. So I'm gonna click on my sample class and click next. And this is where I can create an assignment. I can also, I'm gonna go back to my Teams and show you one other way. So first I went here, I found my team that I wanted to attach the assignment to and created it there. You can also come right up here, and that is the same for your students as well. If they're in your team ready to go, click on assignments. And this is where you can create a new assignment. When you click create, you can pick an assignment, a quiz, or if you have multiple sessions, say, or you've done this last year or for next year, you want to reuse something, you can pull it from an existing assignment. When you first get in here, you'll need to add a title. And we're going to call this Getting to Know You. And right here, you can add a category if you want, like if you were using this as an elementary teacher and you might have a math, science, or a social studies category or social, that's up to you. You do not have to add a category. Instructions, this is where it's really important. You can use this, you can create an assignment where you're just having your students send you a link or send you something that they completed as a result of what you've asked them to do. So please send me your, I'm going to say a sway today, sway on your favorite thing. So this might be something you're doing early on with students, or maybe you might have them send you a sway or any other presentation that they can create a link to on their favorite things to do outside of school. Because I'm sure school is always their favorite thing to do. So please send me your sway link on your favorite thing to do outside of school. Because I had them, we're going to pretend, because I had them. Oh, yes. Sorry, I thought there was a question. Remember, we started this sway class before the closure. So if I'm just having them send me a quick link or something like that, I don't have to add a resource. We'll go into that next. if I'm not doing points, I don't have to worry about points. So it might be that I have the students send me or turn in a like a permission slip. I know that in our district, we're having parents give permission for students to be on video for Teams meetings. So if you need to have a permission slip of some sort, you could have them turn it in here and there are no points, kind of that quick way for students to send you something. You decide if, because there's no points, we're not going to add a rubric this time. And I can decide, does this go to all students, or did some of my students turn this in before we closed and I only need to send it to a few? And then I'm going to click assign. Now, while I'm waiting, because I know Emily is here and she's going to turn in that assignment for us, I'm going to go in and take a look at one other type of assignment. Oops, sorry, just 1 second. So from assignments this time, I'm going to create another assignment. And this time I'm actually going to attach a document, because most of the time we have some type of worksheet or template that we would like them to complete. So for this one, I'm going to call this video reflection. I could add a category if I wanted. This time I'm going to say, please watch this video and use the attached resource to enter your responses. And this is where I could add that video link. I'm gonna.
And Christy, there was a question in the comments about seeing the rubric. Are you going to show that as well?
Yes.
Or could you show that? Okay.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. I will show that in just a moment. So now I'm going to add a resource. And what this is you might be adding a specific link, a specific document that you would like them to use. Or if you're a class notebook user, maybe you have that page in a class notebook already and you're going to attach that. Or a brand new file. Maybe you just want them to have a blank file that they don't have to go create and label. I'm going to select OneDrive because I have the file saved under my sample class. Now this is my OneDrive, my Office 365 OneDrive, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Word document, attach it, and now right here, this is the most important part. By default, students can't edit this file. To change permissions, click more options. So by default, when I add this resource, it's just a resource. They're just looking at it. Sometimes we just want them to look at an example. Sometimes you might add, here's an example of what an exemplar paper might look like, or resources that they might need to complete the project, some resource or research papers, whatever the case may be. But because I want them to actually do this, I'm going to click on the ellipsis here, and I'm going to change it from students can't edit to students edit their own copy. So the nice thing is when a student comes in here and clicks on this resource, they automatically have a copy saved to their own OneDrive. So they'll do the work and close it. There's no saving. There's no worries that they've lost it. And the document is titled the way I want it to. So there's no document 27 coming to my email to tell me, you know, and I got to dig in and figure out, oh, yep, that's Jacob's remote learning assignment. Oh, yeah. So this is really, really important for teacher organization. It makes it so much easier for you. Again, I can choose points or no points. Maybe I'll say 10 points. And this is where you can add that rubric. So I'll click here on Add Rubric. You can upload a rubric if you've already got one, which is very handy, or you can create a new rubric or use one that you've already used this year. So I'm going to go ahead and click New Rubric. You'll give it a title. And again, decide, do you want points, yes or no? You would give it a description. And from here, it is 4, excellent, and you'll enter the criteria. I might say above and beyond. For the sake of this call, I'll keep this quick, good. Some criteria was met. And this, I promise, is a very poor rubric. Normally, I would add more details here, but for the sake of this call. And poor. And from here, then I can attach this rubric for students to use. And now continuing on, I've made it for 10 points. I have added the rubric, we can see it there. I've decided it's going to my sample class. And right here, I can decide, you know, I actually only want this to go to Emily. And this is where we can decide, do we want to add a due date and a due time? So right down here, this is the most important. Assignments will post immediately with late turn-ins allowed. So if there's some reason that you can't allow late turn-ins, maybe it's the end of the semester and you have to get grades in, this is last possible moment, you would want to edit that. We'll go in a little deeper on one more round after this at looking at assignments, so I'll save that for next. And then I'm going to click Assign. So I've been talking a lot and I want to give you a chance to try creating an assignment. So during this time, I'll give you about 5 minutes to try creating your own assignment. Just stick with something very basic, maybe something you already have on your OneDrive, and try creating an assignment. Let me go back to our timer here. In the meantime, if you have questions, please feel free to post those. I know there's lots of great discussion going on. So during this time, you're just trying to create an assignment, and it is something you can delete later. Or just don't go all the way through and click Assign if you'd like. And then it won't freak out your students if you have students in that class. For those of you experts on this, if you need a stretch, or anybody else, if you need a stretch, I know we've been sitting for about 50 minutes, so please feel free to take this time as a quick stretch break as well. You will be doing this on your own team. The way this conference team is set up is it is an other team, so unfortunately you can't try it out in here. You'll need to try your own team. All right, welcome back. I hope you had a good experience trying that out. And I just see M. Rogers just asked if it's possible to show us what the student sees when they come to open it and edit the assignment. Absolutely, that's where we're headed next. So wonderful question, perfect timing. So I'm headed back into my class, my sample class. And again, I can go assignments here in the me space or right up here to take me right to this team's assignments. And when I click on an assignment, this is where it's really nice because I can take a look right here. See back, edit assignment, I can make changes, or I can see what do the students see on their end. So this is what it would look like. So they've got their instruction and it's labeled student work. So they know they just need to click on there. They see how many points possible, as well as the video reflection. And I know later this week, we also have classes on accessibility features. And this is one of those great accessibility features built right into Teams. The students can have this read aloud to them. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. So I'm back to my teacher view and I'm looking at the video reflection assignment. So luckily, Emily, while we were in the break there, turned that in. I bet she did it even before. She's so on top of things. I can click right here and I see Emily turned it in. If I had others in my class, I could see not turned in or turned in, depending on what they've done. I could immediately come in here and give Emily feedback saying, wow, you are on top of things today. I'll be grading this tonight if I wanted that immediate feedback. Or I could just say, great job, thank you so much for turning that in, without even looking at it, giving them that quick response of what they've just done. I could go ahead and just give her 10 points because I did say there were points. And then I can return it. So right up here, I return this to Emily and she sees that comment. I could also go ahead and click on turned in. So again, that was a quick click. Click on turned in, where she turned it in, and I can see where she added her work. I could add to my feedback here, right over here in feedback. I can change her grade right down here under points, but it looks perfect to me. I see she has no idea. That means that, hey, Emily, maybe we can actually get together. I have an office hours session later this afternoon. Well, I'll be covering this. Would you like to join? I will admit I did borrow some of my daughter's homework, so I also may not have the answers to these, but that would be how it would look for the students. And so Emily has her own copy that she turned in to me, and now I can return it back to her so that she can review that. So I want to check in if there are any questions regarding that feedback. So I'm going to close that assignment really quick, and I'm going to go back to my other assignments to take a look. Thank you, Emily. We'll work through it together. Maybe we'll get my high schooler to join us as well. Oh, and Beth had such a great, important comment. The immersive reader for assignments views also helps families that are not native English speakers. Absolutely, because you can change the language there and then it can help the family and the student. Great, great comment, Beth. Okay, so I'm going to go in and take a look at one other assignment here. I'll show you the student view. This is an assignment I created yesterday. So I put a little more verbiage here, talking about the importance of feeding our curiosity. So this is a really easy way to start a project with your students. And for this assignment, I've asked Emily to create a Sway or another platform that she can share a link with me about things she's passionate about learning during this time when she has some extra time. I didn't add any student work because they're just providing me with the link. There are no points, but there is a rubric, so I can click there. And I see the rubric that the students will be using. They can even download it because remember I'm here in the student view. And I'm going to go ahead and go back out of that student view. And Emily turned this in. So again, I can take a quick look at Emily. And so here's the cool thing. Students can turn something in without actually attaching something. So I know I've heard kindergartners love to click the turn in button because it makes a really fun little animated cartoon. Sometimes it's a sloth, sometimes it's an ice cream cone, encouraging them that they turned it in and did a good job. The nice thing is, even if they're not done and they turn something in, but you have a resource attached, like a document attached, you can check in and see how they're doing. So I might return and say, oh, I know you're not quite done. Must have been an accident, but keep working. The other thing here is I can view Emily's work. I've clicked on her to come into this assignment, but I can navigate to other student work right here if there were other students in this class. I can also view the history for this assignment because oftentimes as you're giving that feedback and that feedback loop increases, you're going to be going back and forth a lot, especially if it's a meatier assignment. And oh, and I do see here, I had missed it. Emily did add in the Sway link. There it is. So I can now see her Sway. Thank you, Emily, for being an all-star there. And after I review her Sway, I can say, great job. Forward to learning more. And now I can return it to her or ask her to add more detail or continue working throughout the year. So I'm going to return that back to her and close out. And go back to all of my assignments. All right. So the final thing I want, not final, but one of the other features and assignments that's really handy to know about is I'm going to go into this physics assignment and I'm going to edit it again. So again, I could create a new assignment, but here I'm going to come right down. So after I click edit the assignment, right where it says assignment allows late turn-ins, edit that. And this is where I can choose that close date. So if at the end of the semester, I've given them all the chances that they we're out of time, I can actually add a due date here. And then late turn-ins will no longer be allowed. So now Emily has to get that one in by May. So I'm going to go ahead and return that and update that assignment. I'm going to create one more assignment here. And for this one, I might choose a quiz. And this is where you can choose. So this is connected to your forms account so that you have for your district. You can choose, oh, I've got my form right here that I've already created. So if you don't have this already, you would create your form. and then click Next. You could also create that form right there. I can decide how many points it is again. And for this one, maybe I want to edit the options again on when it can be turned in. So before I choose a close date, I can actually choose to schedule to assign this in the future. So if I know I'm starting to plan a unit, they won't need this quiz until the end of this month because we'll be focusing on this topic for the next month. I don't want to overwhelm them or schedule it too early where they're like, oh, all the assignments for the semester are piling up. I can schedule to assign it in the future so it doesn't show up for them until, I think we'll wait until later on this month. So, and then change my due date to June 3rd. So Emily won't see this in her assignments until Wednesday, May 27th at 9 a.m. It'll come on and she'll have until June 3rd to turn that in. I can choose to add a close date right here if I want to, especially on a quiz. Usually there might be an end date or not. And then click Done. And again, to do that, it's right down here under Edit at the very bottom. And then go ahead and click Schedule. And now that assignment shows up for me, but it does not show up for my students until that date. Okay, so I've just showed you quite a few things on reviewing assignments and also some features you can add to your assignment, like assigning it in the future. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to go ahead and try that out or ask questions in the chat. I do have a video that I would like you to watch if you are just, looking for something new, and it is on quick reflections for grading. So some quick video. It's a quick video on how to grade students very quickly. So if you're not doing this along with us, Beth will post that link in the chat for you to go ahead and watch that quick video by Alice Keeler on giving quick feedback. Everyone else, if you want to try that or play around with some of the features I just showed you, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Again, if you have questions, please type those in the chat box. You guys are doing amazing helping each other out and brainstorming ideas. So I really appreciate that.
And this she said didn't have a tag, that it was with those two. So that's another size.
And those of you who are finished with the video or testing out your assignments and have experience using Teams assignments, if you would like to share one of the most helpful assignments that you've ever assigned. So maybe it is a having students turn in permission slips, or maybe it's a continuing project. What kinds of ways have you used Teams assignments that you have really felt lightened your load as a teacher, making it worth the investment of time for somebody new to using Teams? So if you don't mind sharing those in the chat, that would be wonderful. And as always, if you have questions, and please place those in the chat box, and we'll make sure to address those when we come back. Okay, welcome back. So I don't see any questions that have come in. So we are now going to, I think we're all ready to start creating assignments. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, we'll really be diving into those channels and adding tabs to really help organize your students and help them be the best students and easily access the content you're putting out for them. Again, as you have ideas on ways to use assignments, please feel free to share those in the chat box. For now, we're going to actually go ahead and go into our final piece for the day, which is getting your promo code for attending this session, as well as answering any final questions that you may have. So for those of you new to the Microsoft Educator Center, you'll want to log into or go to education.microsoft.com. If you don't already have a profile, you'll want to create a profile. You can connect it to your school's Office 365 account. For those of you who are already in and using this amazing resource, you'll just come to your profile picture in the upper right-hand corner and select Redeem Achievement Code. And you're going to put in this code right here. And Beth will be adding it to our chat here in a moment. And this is where you can get your acknowledgement for attending this session. So again, if you have questions getting into the Educator Center or Microsoft Educator Center, please type those in the chat box, but we'll be, I want you to make sure you get that promo code entered before we close this session. All right.
Hey, Christy, this is Emily. Are you able to stop the incoming video so we don't see the camera for the person who didn't realize it's on?
Oh, let's see.
I think you have to go to the three dots. Thanks.
There we go. Thank you.
I think that person turned it off. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. And if you have any questions or want to stay connected or have ideas, I will be on for the next 10 minutes. I'll look through the chat here and make sure. I know we've had lots of great ideas coming through. I see a question. What if a textbook resource are in PDF format and I would like to have it printed out for a student to complete before having devices, let's see, or in-person class? So what I would do is if you have a PDF document, the really cool thing about Word is you can actually open up that document in Word. So go to File and Open in Microsoft Word, and then select that PDF, and it will convert your PDF file to a Word document that then is editable. It sometimes takes a few minutes, and it depends on how intense the graphics are on your PDF, but that is one very good way to create something for students to respond to. So again, using Word to open that PDF is what I would recommend. Oh, and Emily mentioned for PDF, she likes using class notebooks so they can ink over the top of it or draw on the pages. Absolutely. That is one of those great things that Class Notebook offers so that you can get back in. And that might be a reason that you might go there, especially if many of your assignments require a PDF. Absolutely. I see a question about, is it possible to work with 2 different teams when you're using the Teams app? You can definitely work with multiple teams, but it's when you sign in, you're signing into that tenant. So for today's session, you signed into the USMIE tenant to join this team. So you would not be able to join multiple teams from that tenant. But if you're signed into your district tenant and then you want to go between teams, absolutely. You can be in many, many teams.
And Christy, it's
Yes.
possible to send an assignment to multiple teams as well, right?
Yes, it is. So when you are, I will show that really quickly. So when I go to assignments, and I'll select my team that I want, I can start here. I'll create an assignment, and I'll make this quick. I wouldn't actually send it out just like this. I can write down here where it says assign to. When I click on that option, I can also assign it to other class teams that I have. So it would go across. That's a great thing. Thank you, Beth, for reminding me of that. And again, you can assign to just one class or multiple class, one student, multiple students, or a whole class as well. So if I just wanted to add this to one student, I would add just that student's name. They would also be listed too. So I've only got Emily in this one test class, but I would select the students that I want that assignment to go to. Any other questions? Just checking over the chat box here. Ooh, I see a question. Are students notified that they've received feedback? And yes, they are. And that's another good thing to show your students this activity. They'll also see bolded parts. So right here, they would see the assignment that was returned to them. So going to your activity feed is a great place to start, as well as going into the team and looking at the assignment, but the activity feed will quickly notify them. Put that up there. All right, those of you who have got your questions answered and entered your promo code, you can definitely drop off now. We ended a couple minutes early, or keep practicing those skills that you learned and create some assignments, and I'll stay on here to answer questions. Or if you have additional feedback that you'd like to share with the group on ideas on how to create meaningful assignments for your students, please feel free to share that as well. And I really appreciate all of your attentiveness during this time, and just can't thank you enough. I know life for teachers right now is very exhausting, and I'm just so proud of what we've been able to achieve for our students from afar. So way to go, teachers. You're doing awesome. And thanks for attending today.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Christy. I have a quick question.